The wine glass shattered against my apartment wall, leaving a burgundy stain that looked like blood splatter. Perfect. Another mess I have to clean up myself because St. Dylan isn't here to help any more Dylan with his stupid moral compass and his pathetic need to defend people who don't even matter. 3 months. That's all I got. 3 months of playing the sweet girlfriend before my past came crashing through the facade like it always does. I should have known better than to tell him about Garrett. Should have kept my mouth shut about high school, about the pranks, about everything that made those 4 years bearable in that suffocating Beverly Hills bubble. But no, I had to go and run my mouth after too much champagne, thinking Dylan would laugh along with me like everyone else always did. Like everyone else still does, except now they do it behind my back instead of to my face. Let me paint you a picture of who I was before Dylan decided I was too damaged to love. Kelly Sinclair, 22, marketing coordinator at a boutique firm on Rodeo Drive Yoga every morning at 6, green juice for breakfast, carefully curated Instagram feed full of sunset shots and motivational quotes. The kind of girl who gets approached at coffee shops and asked if she's a model. The kind of girl who usually doesn't have to try very hard to get what she wants. Dylan was different. That's what I told myself when we met at my friend Cassandra's pool party in the hills. He wasn't like the trust fund boys I usually dated, the ones who understood the game because they played it too. Dylan was genuine. A software developer who actually worked for his money instead of waiting for daddy's monthly deposit. He drove a Honda Civic instead of a Tesla. He volunteered at an animal shelter on weekends. He was everything I wasn't. And maybe that's why I wanted him. Or maybe I just wanted to prove I could have him. The first month was easy. I know how to be charming. I learned that skill the same place I learned everything else that matters. The halls of Beverly Hills High, where your social survival depended on being prettier, meaner, or richer than everyone else. Preferably all three. I played the role perfectly. Laughed at his nerdy coding jokes, which were objectively terrible, pretended to care about his rescue dog stories. So boring. Acted impressed by his tiny apartment in Culver City when inside I was calculating how many of my handbags could pay his rent for a year. By the second month, something weird happened. I started to actually enjoy it. Not the pretending part. That was exhausting. But Dylan himself. The way he'd light up when explaining some programming concept I didn't understand. How he'd remember little things like bringing me oat milk for my coffee, because I mentioned once that dairy made me bloated. He treated me like I was special, not because of how I looked or who my father was, but just because I was me. What a joke. He didn't know who me really was. The third month is when I got comfortable. Comfortable enough to let my guard down. We were at his place, killing a bottle of champagne I'd brought to celebrate his promotion. He'd been promoted to senior developer, and he was so genuinely excited about it. Not the fake excitement I was used to, where people pretend to care about achievements that their parents probably orchestrated real, earned pride. "Tell me something about you I don't know," he said, running his fingers through my hair as we lounged on his second-hand couch. "I was kind of a mean girl in high school," I said, the champagne making me bold. Or stupid. Probably both. He laughed. "You? No way! You're literally the sweetest person I know." That should have been my warning. Should have been my cue to shut up and change the subject. But I was drunk on champagne, and his attention and the novel feeling of being seen as sweet. "Oh, I was terrible," I said, warming to the topic. "There was this kid, Garrett, total loser. We used to mess with him all the time." "Mess with him how?" And then I told him. God, why did I tell him? About how Garrett was this weird kid who wore the same 3 shirts in rotation and brought tuna sandwiches for lunch every day. How he had this desperate crush on me, obvious to everyone, including the janitors. How my friends and I decided it would be hilarious to use that against him. "I pretended to like him back," I said, giggling at the memory. "You should have seen his face when I agreed to go out with him. He actually thought someone like me would date someone like him." Dylan's hand stilled in my hair, but I didn't notice. I was too caught up in the story, too busy reliving my glory days. "So we went on this date to the park. I told him I wanted to take things to the next level. Told him to take his pants off. I was laughing so hard I could barely get the words out, and then my friends came out of the bushes and grabbed his pants and we all drove off, left him there in his tighty-whities. I expected Dylan to laugh. Everyone always laughed at that story. Instead, he pulled his hand away and sat up. "That's horrible," he said quietly. "Oh, come on," I said, still not getting it. "It was just a prank." "Did he think it was just a prank?" I shrugged. "I don't know, probably not. He was kind of slow, you know? Like maybe actually special needs or something. He never seemed to get that I was in on the jokes." Dylan stared at me like I'd grown a second head. "You tortured a potentially disabled kid and you think it's funny?" "Tortured is a strong word. What would you call it?" "I don't know, fun. Everyone did stuff like that." "I didn't." "Well, you probably went to a different kind of school." "I went to public school in Van Nuys. We had bullies too. I just wasn't one of them." The judgment in his voice made something ugly rear up inside me. Who was he to judge me? Some nobody from Van Nuys who probably spent high school playing Dungeons and Dragons in his mom's basement? "It was years ago," I said. "Why are you being so weird about this?" "Because you still think it's funny. You have no remorse at all." "Remorse? For what? For being popular? For having fun? Sorry I wasn't a saint in high school like apparently you were." But he wasn't backing down. The look in his eyes was changing, morphing from confusion to something worse, disappointment. Like I was a defective product he needed to return. "Tell me another one," he said. "Another what?" "Another story about Garrett, about what you did to him." I should have refused, should have recognized the trap, but I was angry now, defensive. Fine. He wanted to know who I really was? I'd show him. "One time, we convinced him I was having a pool party for my birthday, told him it was a costume party, superhero theme. He showed up at my house in this ridiculous homemade Batman costume. I'm talking towel for a cape, his mom's tights, the whole 9 yards. But there was no party, just me and my friends with cameras, recording the whole thing." "What did you do with the recording?" "Posted it online, obviously. Tagged everyone from school. He got roasted in the comments for weeks." "Jesus Christ, Kelly." "What? He should have known better. Who actually believes someone like me would invite them to a party?" "A lonely kid who thought someone was finally being nice to him." "Well, that's his problem for being so gullible." "No," Dylan said, standing up. "That's your problem for being so cruel." That's when I laughed. Actually laughed at him, this nobody developer who lived in a 1-bedroom apartment and thought he had the right to lecture me about anything. Cruel? Please. You know what's cruel? The real world. I was just preparing him for it. By destroying his self-esteem? By teaching him that people like him don't get to be with people like me. It's just reality. People like him? People like you? What the hell does that even mean? You know what it means. There are levels to this, hierarchies. He was at the bottom, I was at the top. That's how it works. In high school, maybe, but you're not in high school anymore. The world is just high school with money, Dylan. The sooner you figure that out, the better off you'll be. He looked at me for a long moment, really looked at me, like he was seeing me for the first time. And maybe he was. You haven't changed at all, have you? He said finally. You're still that mean girl. You just hide it better now. I'm not hiding anything. This is who I am. Sorry if that's not sweet enough for you. No, he said. You're not sorry. That's the whole problem. You're not sorry about any of it. He asked me to leave. Just like that. 3 months down the drain because I told him some funny stories about a loser from high school. I tried to argue, tried to make him see how ridiculous he was being, but he wouldn't budge, said he needed time to think. I drove home fuming. Who did he think he was? Some coding nerd from the valley acting like he was better than me? I was Kelly Sinclair. I could have any guy I wanted. I was doing him a favor by dating him, bringing him into my world, and this was how he repaid me? I sent him a text when I got home. You're seriously ending this over some kid from high school? He didn't respond for hours. When he finally did, it was just, we need to talk. Can you meet tomorrow? I spent the whole night preparing my defense. He was overreacting. Everyone did stupid stuff in high school. It wasn't that big a deal. Garrett was probably fine now, probably didn't even remember any of it. And even if he did, so what? Life isn't fair. Some people are winners, and some people are losers. I didn't make the rules. We met at a Starbucks in Brentwood the next afternoon. Neutral territory. He looked tired, like he hadn't slept. Good. Maybe he'd realized how stupid he was being. I've been thinking about what you told me, he started. And you realized you're being ridiculous? And I realized I can't be with someone who thinks the way you do. The words hit me like a slap. Excuse me? The way you talked about that kid, the way you still talk about him, like he wasn't even human, like he existed just for your entertainment. I never said that. You said he had no purpose except to make people laugh. Your words. Had I said that? The champagne had made everything fuzzy, but let's be honest. I remember every word. I just didn't want to admit it. It's not just what you did, he continued. It's that you still think it was okay. You have no empathy at all. I have empathy. I just save it for people who matter. And who gets to decide who matters? I do. For my life, I decide. Then I guess I've made my decision too. He stood up to leave. Actually stood up like we were done, like that was it. 3 months thrown away over some nobody from high school who probably still worked at a gas station now. You're seriously breaking up with me over this? I said, loud enough that people at other tables looked over. I'm breaking up with you because you're not the person I thought you were. No, I'm exactly the person you thought I was. You just don't like seeing behind the curtain. You're right, he said. I don't. And then he left. Just walked out of Starbucks and out of my life like I was nothing. Like I was the one who didn't matter. I sat there for another 10 minutes, waiting for him to come back. Waiting for him to realize he was making a huge mistake. But he didn't come back. He never came back. The next few days were a blur of anger and whine. I told my friends what happened, expecting sympathy, expecting them to agree that Dylan was being ridiculous, but something strange happened. I told them the story, expecting them to back me up, and they got quiet. Annoyingly quiet. I mean, it was kind of mean, Cassandra said carefully. So, since when do you care about being mean? I don't know, Kelly. We're not in high school anymore. Maybe he has a point. Are you fucking kidding me right now? But she wasn't kidding. None of them were. Suddenly, everyone wanted to distance themselves from the things we'd done, the people we'd been. Like they hadn't been right there with me, laughing just as hard, coming up with pranks that were just as cruel. We were kids, my friend Brianna said. We didn't know better. Yes, we did, I shot back. We just didn't care. And you know what? I still don't. That was the wrong thing to say. I could see it in their faces, the way they exchanged glances. I was becoming a liability. The mean girl who never grew up, the one who might remind people of who they used to be. The group texts started leaving me out. The invitations stopped coming. Even Cassandra, who'd been my best friend since freshman year, started being too busy to hang out. In 3 weeks, I went from queen bee to social pariah, all because I refused to apologize for being exactly who everyone knew I was. But the worst part was still to come. I was at work, trying to focus on a campaign for a new boutique, when I got a Facebook message from a name I didn't recognize, Garrett Hoffman. My blood ran cold. Hi, Kelly, the message read. I heard you've been telling stories about me. I stared at the screen, my hands shaking. How did he know? How could he possibly know? Dylan Marshall is my cousin, the next message said. Small world, right? No, this wasn't happening. Of all the guys in Los Angeles, I had to date the one whose cousin was the biggest loser from my high school? He called me after you told him about all those hilarious pranks. Wanted to check if I was okay. Funny thing is, I wasn't okay, not for a long time. I started typing a response, then deleted it. What was I supposed to say? Sorry I ruined your high school experience, but you were really asking for it? I spent years in therapy because of you and your friends, he continued. Years thinking there was something fundamentally wrong with me, that I was worthless, that I deserved to be treated like a joke. My phone buzzed with more messages, but I couldn't read them. I clicked over to his profile instead. Garrett Hoffman, software engineer at Google, of all places UCLA graduate. Engaged to a pretty brunette who looked at him like he hung the moon. It was disgusting, like the universe had gotten the roles backward. The loser I'd tortured for fun was making more money than I'd ever see, had a better degree than I'd ever earn, was marrying someone who actually loved him while I couldn't keep a relationship for more than 3 months. I don't want an apology, his final message read. I know you're not capable of giving a real one. I just wanted you to know that I remember everything. And now Dylan knows exactly who you are too. I threw up in the office bathroom. Actually threw up, kneeling on the cold tile and heaving up my green juice and the nothing else I'd eaten that day. Because Dylan did know exactly who I was. He'd seen past the yoga and the inspirational quotes and the carefully crafted image to the ugly truth underneath. I was still a bully. I'd just gotten better at hiding it. The rest of the day passed in a haze. I couldn't focus, couldn't think about anything except Dylan's face when I'd told him those stories. The disappointment. The disgust. Like I was something he'd stepped in and needed to scrape off his shoe. I tried texting him that night, dozens of messages, each one more desperate than the last. I'm sorry you're upset. Can we please talk about this? You're throwing away something good over ancient history. This is insane, Dylan, please. I can change. That last one was a lie, and we both knew it. I couldn't change. Didn't even want to. What was there to change? I was successful, beautiful, had everything I'd ever wanted except for the one guy who didn't want me back. And why? Because I'd been mean to his loser cousin 1,000,000 years ago? He never responded. Not to the texts, not to the calls, not to the email I sent at 3 a.m. after finishing a bottle of wine. Just silence. Like I didn't exist. Like I was nobody. Like I was Garrett. The parallel wasn't lost on me, but I refused to feel bad about it. This was different. I was different. I mattered. Didn't I? A week passed, then 2. I kept checking his social media, looking for signs of what he was doing, who he was with. Nothing. He'd always been private online, said he didn't believe in living life for an audience. Another way he was different from everyone I knew. Another way he was better. Number. Not better, just different. Just good. 3 weeks after our breakup, I saw him. I was at Whole Foods in Brentwood grabbing a salad I wouldn't eat when I spotted him in the cereal aisle. My heart stopped. He was with a girl. Cute, in that natural way that suggested she probably didn't spend 2 hours getting ready to go grocery shopping. They were laughing about something, and the sound was like nails on glass. I abandoned my basket and left before he could see me. Sat in my car in the parking lot and tried not to cry because crying would ruin my makeup and I had a client meeting in an hour. He'd already moved on. Already found someone else. Someone nicer, probably. Someone who'd never tormented disabled kids for fun. Someone who deserved him. The thought made me angry enough to stop almost crying. Deserve him? I was Kelly Sinclair. I didn't have to deserve anything. Things were just supposed to be mine because I wanted them, but Dylan wasn't a thing. He was a person. A good person who'd seen me for exactly what I was and decided I wasn't worth it. Just like I'd decided Garrett wasn't worth basic human decency all those years ago. The realization should have been profound. Should have led to some big epiphany about karma and growth and becoming a better person. But it didn't. It just made me angrier. At Dylan, at Garrett, at my friends who'd abandoned me, at the whole world for suddenly deciding that being mean was some unforgivable sin. I went back to my life. Worked, went to yoga, posted inspirational quotes about resilience and moving forward, but everything felt hollow now. The image I'd spent so long crafting was just that, an image, and the only person who'd ever bothered to look behind it had run screaming from what he'd found. 6 months later, I ran into Cassandra at a restaurant in Beverly Hills. She was with a group of our old friends, all of them laughing and chatting, like the old days. They fell silent when they saw me. "Kelly," Cassandra said, fake bright. "How are you?" "Great," I lied. "Just great." We made painful small talk for 30 seconds before I excused myself. As I walked away, I heard one of them whisper, "She still doesn't get it, does she?" Get what? That I was supposed to feel bad about being myself? That I was supposed to apologize for winning the genetic lottery and using it to my advantage? That I was supposed to pretend high school didn't matter when we all knew it did? I did get it. I just didn't care. Or I told myself I didn't care. But late at night, after too much wine and not enough food, I'd think about Dylan. About the way he'd looked at me like I was special before he knew the truth. About how it felt to be loved by someone who didn't want anything from me, except to be myself. Except myself was the problem. Myself was mean and shallow and cruel. Myself was a 22-year-old woman who still thought leaving a kid in his underwear in a public park was hilarious. Myself was everything Dylan hated and everything I'd been proud to be until he made me wonder if I should be proud at all. I started seeing a therapist. Not because I wanted to change. I want to be very clear about that. But because my boss had pulled me aside and mentioned that my negative energy was affecting team morale. Apparently, being a bitch was bad for business now, too. Dr. Reeves had kind eyes and an annoying habit of asking, "How does that make you feel?" after everything I said. I spent the first 3 sessions ranting about Dylan and how unfair everything was. She listened patiently, nodding in all the right places until I ran out of steam. "Tell me about Garrett," she said in our 4th session. "Why? He's nobody." "He seems like somebody. Dylan's cousin, a successful engineer, the person whose pain ended your relationship." "My relationship ended because Dylan is too sensitive." "Is that really what you believe?" "Yes," I lied. She waited. Therapists are good at waiting. "No," I admitted. "My relationship ended because I'm exactly who Dylan said I was." "And who is that?" "A bully, a mean girl, someone who hurts people for fun." "Do you want to be those things?" "I don't know how to be anything else." It was the first honest thing I'd said in therapy, maybe the first honest thing I'd said in years. I didn't know how to be nice, didn't know how to be kind. All I knew was how to be pretty and cruel and get what I wanted until I wanted something I couldn't have. "You could learn," Dr. Reeves suggested. "Why? What's the point? Dylan's gone. My friends are gone. Everyone who mattered has already seen who I really am." "What about who you could be?" "This is who I am. This is who I've always been." "People can change, Kelly." "Yeah, well, I don't want to change. I just want everyone to stop making me feel bad about it." But that was a lie, too. I did want to change. Not for noble reasons. Let's be clear about that. I wanted to change because being myself had cost me everything that mattered. But wanting and doing are 2 very different things, and I'd built my entire identity on being better than everyone else. How do you change that? How do you become nice when mean is all you know? I kept going to therapy, kept pretending to make progress, even though sometimes I almost meant it. Dr. Reeves talked about empathy and consequences and the cycle of hurt. I nodded and said the right things and went home to my empty apartment and my expensive wine and my memories of 3 months when someone thought I was worth loving. A year after the breakup, I got an invitation in the mail. Thick cream cardstock with elegant calligraphy. "Dylan Marshall and Emma Chen request the honor of your presence at their wedding." I stared at it for so long the words blurred together. He was getting married. Of course he was getting married. Good guys like Dylan didn't stay single. They found good girls like Emma Chen who probably spent their high school years tutoring disadvantaged kids instead of tormenting them. There was a note attached in Dylan's handwriting. I know this is weird, but Garrett really wanted you to be invited. He says forgiveness is part of his healing journey. I hope you can be happy for us. Garrett wanted me there. The kid I'd tortured wanted to watch his cousin marry someone else, someone better, someone who would never dream of hurting another person for entertainment. I marked, "Will not attend," and sent it back the same day. Then I drank an entire bottle of champagne, the expensive kind I used to save for celebrations, and cried until my carefully applied makeup ran down my face in black streams. This is the part where I'm supposed to tell you I had an epiphany, that I realized the error of my ways and dedicated my life to making amends, that I became a better person and found my own happiness. But that would be a lie, and I'm trying not to lie anymore, at least not to myself. The truth is, I'm still mean, still shallow, still the girl who thinks leaving someone in their underwear in a public park is kind of funny. The difference is, now I know that makes me a bad person. Now I know that's why I'm alone in my overpriced apartment, scrolling through Instagram photos of people who used to be my friends, wondering when everyone else grew up and left me behind. Dylan's wedding was last month. I know because Garrett posted pictures on Facebook. He looked happy. They all looked happy. Dylan in his suit, Emma in her dress, surrounded by people who loved them because they were worth loving. I wasn't there, but I thought about them all day. Thought about what Dylan must have told Emma about me. His crazy ex, who turned out to be a high school bully, the girl he dated for 3 months before realizing she was toxic. A cautionary tale about the importance of really knowing someone before you fall for them. I'm 23 now, still beautiful, still successful, still everything I thought mattered. But Dylan was right. I haven't changed at all. I'm still that mean girl from Beverly Hills High, just with a better wardrobe and a therapist I lie to twice a week. Still waiting for the world to apologize for expecting me to be a decent human being, still alone. My mother calls sometimes, asks if I'm seeing anyone. I tell her I'm focusing on my career. I don't tell her that I had someone good and threw it away because I couldn't stop laughing about the worst parts of myself. I don't tell her that I'm starting to understand why Garrett needed all that therapy. That sometimes late at night I think about him standing in that park in his underwear, watching us drive away. And for the first time in my life, I almost feel bad about it. The wine stain is still on my wall. I could paint over it, but I don't. It's a reminder now of the night I told the truth and lost everything, of the person I was and the person I'll probably always be, of 3 months when someone believed I was capable of being better, before I proved him wrong. Dylan was my chance to be different, to be the sweet girl he thought I was, instead of the mean girl I'd always been. But you can't fake being good. Not forever. Eventually, the truth comes out, usually over too much champagne and stories you should have kept buried. So here I am, Kelly Sinclair, former Queen Bee, current nobody. Still pretty, still cruel, still incapable of understanding why that combination doesn't work anymore. Drinking wine in my designer apartment, thinking about a software developer from Van Nuys who saw through my act in 3 months flat. He's married now. Happy. Building a life with someone who was probably nice in high school, who probably never tortured anyone for fun, who probably deserves all the good things I'll never have. And me? I'm exactly where mean girls end up when the world stops finding their cruelty entertaining. Alone, bitter, and finally starting to understand that maybe, just maybe, we were the real nobodies all along.